So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the iPhone versus Galaxy 2021. We're midway through, and I want to talk about how they compare. Now, if you're wondering why is he showing the 11 Pro Max, that's because I'm running the iOS 15 Beta 2, the latest official software, not official, actually, beta software for the iPhone. And over here, we got the Galaxy S21 Plus. It's not a comparison between these phones. They're just being used to talk about iPhone versus Galaxy. So the first thing I want to talk about here is the battery life. Which device offers the better battery life across their product line? And between these two, I find that the iPhone is seriously giving the better standby pretty much on every iPhone I've tested versus a comparable Samsung phone. Every time I come off the charger, I see that battery going from 100 to 90 real quick, but after that it slows way down, and then they seem pretty competitive getting through the rest of the day. So it's that initial standby that seems to do better on the iPhone, but then the Samsung phone, I think when gaming and doing some other tasks, can actually hold on to the battery shrink a little bit better. So I think either way you go, as long as you look at a competing phone, like say you get an iPhone 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and you get a phone that's competitive with that, you're going to get a similar battery strength on the Samsung device as well. So they're pretty much neck and neck here. However, I will say if you want better fast charging and you want better, quicker, faster wireless charging as well, I do think these Samsung devices do offer that. So they're a bit ahead in that regard, but in overall battery life, neither one of them are going to charge faster than a OnePlus 9 Pro, for example, but they do have very competitive battery life as long as you're getting a competitive phone. All right, so let's talk about the ease of use factor. Now, I know this is going to come to a shock to many, but I don't believe the iPhone takes the win here anymore. I don't think Samsung either. I think it's a draw in this category. Let me tell you why. Well, when you pick up these phones, first of all, both of them do have apps on the home screen. Yes, the apps on the iPhone don't really let you put them wherever you want on the screen. They kind of fly there, so that could be easier when it comes to, customizing it, because some people might think that, they have it over here. I'm talking about brand new users, novice users. Why is that looking messy like that? Why is it over there? How do I move it around? That could be an extra step, as where the Apple just kind of flies into a corner over there. In addition, on the iPhone series, you do have yourself an app library over here. Now, this is new at 14, but you can see we have an app drawer, so that's pretty similar overall. You do have a notification area up here with some features to toggle on and off features, and then over here on the iPhone, you do have the control center. So the iPhone has a lot of similarities here that don't make it any really easier, at least for the basic usage of the operating system. And when you go in the settings, you do have a ton of features and settings as well for the iPhone series as well, and it keeps growing as more iOS versions come out. Now, for the Samsung device, I think if you dig around a little bit deeper within the OS, things can get a little more feature-packed, a little bit more, in depth, and that could get a little bit more difficult. But if you don't ever mess with most of that stuff, I will say that, they're pretty equal overall. However, again, if you start getting into the settings and the home screen layouts and the grid sizes and icons, yes, that definitely can get a little more complex than using an iPhone. But for someone to say, oh, no, the Samsung devices are much harder to use, Apple's way easier, it's more slick and no, I used to think that as well, but these days it feels like you're using a very similar device in terms of how to use it. It's just you're using one is Android giving you the Play Store, one is Apple giving you the App Store and giving you what Apple has to offer with FaceTime, iMessage, versus over here you might want to use things like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and all those other messenger apps to message people and stuff like that. So really, I would say ease of use factor just comes down to which person feels more comfortable using which platform, because some people I know actually feel much more comfortable using the Samsung device versus the Apple device, and some people are like, I'm never using Samsung. It's just not as easy to use to me. So it depends on the person really here. Okay guys, so when it comes to software updates, Apple is still king in this respect. Now, I am on iOS 15 Beta 2 here, developer Beta 2. The public beta will be out in July. However, I will say that Samsung has gotten much better at updating their phones. They're promising around 4 years of security updates, and I'm going to tell you, these updates are coming monthly, and they're coming pretty quickly. So Samsung has really stepped it up in this regard, and it really makes it more of a reason to want to pick up a Samsung device. Now, does that mean they're better? Absolutely not. Apple still controls top to down the hardware and the software of these devices, so it's much easier for them to just go ahead and update whenever the heck they feel like it. And it just seems like this is really where they really spend most of their energy, is definitely putting a lot of energy into keeping the software updated, as well as, keeping their hardware product line consistent annually. So Samsung also employs a team of people that are trying to keep up to date with the Samsung devices, but it seems to be that they come quicker to the more premium Samsung devices, and they seem to come to the more later versions. As they get older, they do seem to kind of step back a little bit on how fast they put them out for those devices, whereas with the Apple device, everybody's getting it at the same time. So I do think in 2021, Apple is still king of software updates, and it's one of the main reasons why people really do still pick up a lot of these iPhones. However, keep in mind that if you're looking for an Android device that gets updated probably quite as regularly as this one, you might want to look at the Pixel line of devices. Samsung is really good here in terms of longevity. They go a little bit longer now than Pixel, but they don't come out as quick. So I will say, yeah, Apple's still winning out here in software updates, but Samsung is a really good overall option if you're going with Android devices. All right, so which one has better performance? Is it Samsung or is it Apple here? Now, I will say that Samsung has become smoother than the Apple iPhone when it comes to the hardware. We have 120 hertz refresh panels, whereas Apple remains with a 60 hertz. And I do admit the 60 hertz is butter smooth on the iPhone. It's as smooth as 60 hertz you're going to find out there. However, it's not quite as smooth as the 120 hertz, and that's just facts. So Samsung has definitely overtaken Apple and just feeling smoother. However, the transitions, sometimes, the animation might look a little better to certain people's eyes for the iPhone. Just the way the app looks when it opens up. That's just something that Apple really has nailed. Everything looks very slick. Some people might or might not prefer the way Samsung devices open up with their animations. They look a little different. I don't think they look quite as good as the iPhone, but they're definitely getting up there and very smooth overall. I would say that Apple devices I find crash more often. I've had more app crashes than I've had on the Galaxy. However, I will say that the raw performance aspect, like when you're doing video editing, when you're doing gaming, stuff like that, it seems to be a little bit stronger here for the iPhone, whereas with the Galaxy device, it seems like you can get quicker animations when popping between applications. And overall, I think the general user will think the Galaxy phone feels a little bit faster, but when you really start pushing the processor, I think that's where the iPhone will take the lead. So either way you go, most everyday users are not going to be able to tell much of a difference with how these work unless you're actually using apps that really stress the CPU. Then the A series chips seem to take the lead because, again, Apple is designing these chips for its own hardware, whereas Samsung is using a Qualcomm chip for a Samsung software device on an Android Google software platform. So we have kind of a mashup of stuff going on there, but it still seems to work very well, and One UI is definitely very fast as well. I think either way you go here in performance, 2021 Galaxy or iPhone, you're going to be quite happy. They're pretty even here. All right, guys, let's talk about durability between both of these devices. Now, Apple, on the more premium devices, definitely puts that stainless steel, which is definitely more durable than the aluminum bodies you'll find for the Galaxy. So, but that's not saying the Galaxy aren't durable. I would say either one of these phones are definitely up to the task of day-to-day life, but they're not shatterproof and they're not damage-proof. None of these iPhones and Galaxies are. I would say the plasticky, A series line of Samsung could probably take more of a drop without damaging it up too much as their plasticky devices. However, here on the more premium ones, I do like how Samsung's covering up the cameras on the S21 series. We get a little smudge action right there. Again, this is not a full comparison between these two, but I will say that either way you go, put cases on them, put screen protectors on them, and they'll be good. They'll be good without those things, but you might definitely see some scratching going on the screen if you don't put a screen protector. Both of them are not able to resist scratches with day-to-day life. You will see hairline scratches all over the screen if you decide to forego that. But overall, durability is strong on both. You usually get IP ratings on both Samsung Galaxy and iPhones these days as well. So again, I'm calling it pretty much a draw there in durability. I do think if you want the slightly more stronger metal though, you will want a stainless steel iPhone Pro series device. Okay, so for photography and video, which one wins it out here? And I think that I'm going to get some flack for this one, but I'm going to call it Apple right now. And it's not because of the specs, it's not because of the hardware, it's because of the results. I'm trying to look at it from the lens of somebody who's just picking up one of these phones, a consumer, and using these devices. I just think the way the iPhone is set up, it just gives you really good results. The focus is what really gets me on the iPhone every time. They just nail it with the autofocus. There is no issues at all with autofocus. It works perfectly. It reminds me a lot of a camcorder. If you remember camcorders back in the days, if you don't, you're too young to remember. Camcorders definitely don't have major focus issues whatsoever, and that's because Apple's using phase detect autofocus on here, really giving it great focus. And when it comes to the photos and results, they do usually come out very good, and they started adding more pro features and aspect ratios and stuff that Android seemed to hold over Apple for such a long time, which is making it even better these days. And the last thing is like the cherry on top, the Instagram, the photos and videos that go into social media apps. They always seem to turn out a little bit better than Android counterparts. Now over here for the Samsung device, I will give it the win in terms of just overall sheer features and fun to use. I do think it's a little bit more fun to use, the Samsung camera. It does have so much more zoom on here, giving it, again, it's more, you're just going to feel like you got more when you're out there taking photos. If we go over here with video, you'll see all of the aspect ratios and things are up here. And of course, Samsung's going to flex with the 8K video over here. But that 8K video, how useful is that? It's kind of just to say, hey, I have this. I think Apple will eventually bring it when it's actually useful. Now over here, director's view, you can see this is an awesome fun feature as well. Something you're going to have to download an app to use on the iPhone. And look, you have all this stuff here in the more settings and you can bring it down. Again, more customization. Overall, though, the result on the S21 series and a lot of these Samsung phones is getting very good. It's just sometimes I can see things in focus, they just come in a little bit slower sometimes. Not all the time, sometimes. I will say that if you're looking for an Android device that competes the best with the iPhone, is definitely the Galaxy device. However, the results seem to always kind of just shine a little bit more here on the iOS side. That's just what I've seen. So I think Samsung is like a couple tweaks away from just beating the iPhone totally. And that's if they can get app developers to just kind of optimize those apps to make their Samsung Galaxy phones work with all of those social media apps to come out perfectly. And if they can just tweak the focus to be nailing it on every single type of app, every video mode, every camera mode, then Samsung will definitely take the win. In addition, I do think that Samsung's front camera doesn't usually match up quite as good. It looks a little bit soft compared to, whereas with the iPhone, they usually have a little bit of a better selfie camera on the competing device. So that's something I also wanted to point out, is that just the way it looks really does match up very nicely with that rear camera, and it just kind of pushes it just a little bit over the edge of Samsung, but it's not by a lot. It's like that much right there. So which one wins it out in displays? Well, I'm gonna have to give this one hands down to Samsung in 2021. Not only do they produce a lot of the OLED panels for Apple, there's a reason why they do that, and that's because they just produce some of the best OLEDs you're going to find on the market. And because of that reason, it's hard to give Apple a win in this area. I just can't do it. So if we go over here, you'll see that the vibrancy factor of a Samsung phone seems to always shine over that of the iPhone. So if I go to display here, I have this mode where I can put it in vivid, and it just really does look much more vivid than what we see on the iOS platform. Now, if you want to use an iOS kind of accurate color, all you got to do is tweak the Samsung, the natural, and we get that more accurate color look of the iPhone over here. So more options, more vividness. And if you go to the S21 Ultra, that's the most premium phone. It's even bigger. You have the Note 20 Ultra also with a beautiful display, very vivid. And when you go to this video brightness mode and advanced features right here, it will tweak the brightness to just kind of jack up in your media applications, and you'll get this really high peak brightness. And it'll just look super amazing, kind of like those OLED TVs. So yeah, I have to give Samsung the win here. I will say that Apple does get a win in one area though. They allow you, the user, to use a little bit more peak brightness without having to go into the auto mode. So you can actually see more nits of brightness that you can use. However, I don't usually ever get it that high because that's just too bright for most situations. And one thing that Samsung strikes back with is they seem to do a better job with outdoor sunlight. So when you go to the auto brightness, adaptive brightness, when you're in the sunlight, I easily can see my Samsung device. Apple sometimes not the best. I mean, it's definitely readable. You can see it, but I think Samsung devices definitely get brighter, especially these competing Galaxy phones like S21, S20 series. These phones get really bright in the sunlight. So that's a very important factor if you're out and about. Okay, so on the topic of storage, both of these phones do offer, 128, 256. iPhone can go to 512. Usually iPhone goes to 512. Samsung kind of sometimes caps out on certain phones at 256. But with the iPhone, the 512 is usually on the Pro series phones. Here's the thing. Samsung wins out here simply because they are having more phones that still have SD cards. It's not the S21 line. They're kind of going away from this, so they're not going to hold this lead long. But there are phones you can still buy from Samsung that do have SD card slots. Note 20 Ultra has one, for example. These S21s are going away, so I don't know if they're going to keep them forever. They might take them off a lot of the lineups. But right now, I'm still going to give them the win. I'm going to group a last few things together: communications, mobile performance, as well as audio performance. Both of these have a strong Bluetooth connectivity. They usually put some of the fastest Bluetooth connectivity on their phone, so 5.0 and better usually right now. In addition, keep in mind that 5G is available on iPhone as well. iPhone 12 series, Galaxy S21 series, and S20 series have 5G. That's definitely a demand of consumers, something people definitely want. However, a lot of people on this channel have said I'm fine with LTE right now, but that's not everybody. The market is going towards 5G. Keep that in mind. In addition, audio performance on both of these. Usually Samsung and Apple both have great audio from the stereo speakers that are on board on pretty much all of their flagship devices. There's one up here, one down here. The one on the bottom usually has a louder speaker. However, keep in mind that with the iPhone series, there is no phones with headphone jacks. Again, there might be a couple in the Samsung lineup you could find. They're going to usually be the cheaper ones that still have headphone jacks. However, they went away from that here. But they also do have, we have the Galaxy Watch. A new Galaxy Watch is coming in a couple days. You have the Apple Watch for the iPhone lineup. The ecosystem is what I'm talking about here. You got the iPad. You have the Galaxy Tab. You have a similar ecosystem, but why I can call Apple a winner here in the ecosystem overall is because Apple gives you basically a similar experience across each line. Samsung is trying, but here's the thing. On the Galaxy device, we're running Samsung software on Android software on top of Android. It's a layer on top of Android. So at its core, this is a
watch that at its core is trying to be like the Galaxy phone, but it's a Tizen-based operating system. On the Galaxy Tab, again, we're putting a layer over Android. Then, when you look at Samsung's laptop line, they are using Windows over some Samsung software thrown on top. So it's just this mashup of a bunch of stuff. Now, does it work well together? Absolutely. All these products work in sync for the Samsung side, but do they work as well as Apple's? And I would say no, because Apple devices all seem much more similar across each of the lines, making a more cohesive, sticky ecosystem, if that makes sense. I think Google is actually a little bit closer to a more cohesive ecosystem like the iPhone with the Pixel Buds, the Google Pixel line, the Chromebook. That seems much more the same than, with the Galaxy Watch, the Galaxy Tab. Not saying it's not great. It is a pretty great ecosystem overall and probably the largest on the Android side, but all those mashup of software don't give it the win here for me, an ecosystem. And before we wrap it up here, biometrics, we have Face ID that seems to work the same on all of the iPhones that do come. It only missed right there because I wasn't looking at it. Camera's blocking me. Then over here for Samsung, you do have the in-display fingerprint sensor, which also seems to work quite well. So I will say that, they're kind of a draw there because we don't have the in-display Touch ID here, but we don't have the crucial, very secure face unlock. We do have a face unlock here. You have more options here on Samsung, but you got to choose, do you want the in-display fingerprint or do you want the, Face ID? So if I'm being totally honest with you and being objective, it's pretty much down to personal preference, but that's a boring answer. How do we conclude this? Which one do I think is better here? Android, Galaxy 2021 or iPhone with this iOS platform? And I'm going to give it a slight victory to Apple here for the iPhone. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I think that Apple is packaging, it has a tighter packaging and control over its products. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to like this more, but I do think it overall gives with the Apple Watch, the iPad, all this stuff, a more of a polished feel. The ecosystem is more sticky, like I've said earlier, it's more cohesive, and all the products, no matter the size, the weight, the iPad, it all feels like it just goes together a little bit better than with the Samsung line of products. However, I do think if you're into customization, you want a ton of features, you want the best Android hardware on the market, the Galaxy is for you. It's 100% the second best option for sure, and for some it's the first best option. So don't get that twisted. I'm not giving Apple no victory by no landslide right here. You know, if you care about iMessage, FaceTime, blah blah blah, you're gonna like the iPhone more. But if you don't care about that stuff, this race of who is the best of these two phones is kind of over. Really, it just comes down
to you, the viewer, the consumer. It's down to you.